Have you always wanted to write a book? Here is how. So many of you are asking me for tips on how I wrote not one, but two books in a short amount of time, and I got published in the traditional way. So here's 5 things to think about if you have got that dream inside you, but don't know where to start. And a lot of you have a deep and personal story. And I certainly started out just with this big story where I was raised in a cult and all these things had happened. And so I had to fight this kind of inner side of myself that was like, is this story worth telling? Do I feel comfortable telling it? Who's going to want to listen? What's the balance to a sensationalized story and actually something that feels purposeful and meaningful to me? So for many years, I had all these thoughts kind of fizzing around. But I will also say that at the heart of it, I've always wanted to be a writer. And so there was a part of me that through journaling or articles or short stories, whatever it might be, I read a lot and I wrote a lot, and it was part of me. So some of us have a story, but there might be different mediums on how we express it. It might be that you want to speak on stage. It might be that you want to get published for your brand or, part of your business. There will be a variety of reasons for why you might want to get that book out. But they say that we all have a book in us. So 5 tips just to get you started, and I'd love to hear what experiences you have had. Number 1, just write. Writers write. They don't think about writing or ponder where their writing will go forever. They write because it's their soul's expression, and they are simply naked without it. If you know, you know. So yes, of course you want to be published. You have a story to share, or you want to write to elevate your brand in that market. They're all valid reasons, all wonderful endeavors. But if you don't write long before you find that publisher or even self-publish, whatever it might be, well, there's really no point. So really the starting point, even while you're figuring everything else out, is to simply write, to practice, write morning pages like Julia Cameron talks about, journal, scribble, do the thing you say you want to do, whether people are reading it or not. And these days, you can put so many topics on social media, whether it's Substack, whether it's LinkedIn, whatever it might be, depending on your age and your choice of expression. So there's a million ways to practice getting your ideas to kind of formulate in a way that will begin to make sense. So don't wait for that publishing process to think, oh, well, then I'll write. Writers write, so just write. Number 2, when you're then thinking seriously about putting your book out into the world or thinking about the concept that you want to have in a book, you want to think about matching your message to the market. And this is interesting because we get very attached to our message and what we want to say, and certainly you can publish in a variety of ways and simply put your message out there. So if you're thinking of social media and putting your words out there, if you're writing letters, whatever it might be, there's a million ways that you can just put your message out into the world, and it doesn't matter what happens to it. But if you're writing nonfiction or you're writing to elevate your brand, you've got to think about the market. So who is the audience? Hopefully it's as broad an audience as possible. And what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and why should they care? This feels like it's jumping ahead of the curve, but I'll talk you through why this is important, especially when you approach publishers. You might think there's a global challenge that feels relevant. Maybe there's kind of an evergreen challenge like the habit books, that are going to be relevant for years and years to come. Don't get stuck on overthinking this, which is why my first point was just to writers write. The second point is to begin thinking about matching your message to the market. So if I were going to put all of my ideas into one kind of angle, and for who am I thinking about and who am I writing it for? So my first book was very much change makers and activists trying to change the mental health at work culture. And yes, it has some of my story in it because that felt relevant to the market. I grew up in a toxic culture. I struggled with my own mental health. And now that thread, as well as the work that I've done in lots of organizations, helped me think about, okay, who is this roadmap for? It's not just a biography. It's actually a story that impacts the message that I want to tell for people who want to create change. My second book was a bit broader because it was about digital well-being and tech addiction. The struggle there was actually, how do I narrow down the angle and the market for this book? Because hey, parents struggle, workplaces struggle, all people struggle in this world where our attention is being competed for. That's just facts. And so for me, I had to think, great, that's a really global problem I can speak on, but I'm not going to speak about the systemic issue of like the companies that are fighting for our attention and all of that. I'm going to speak to the individual who is in their day-to-day world and who is desperately looking for some real tips that are practical, that can be relatable no matter what age you are, to think about their relationship to technology. So it was a journey, but the audiences were kind of different and it allowed my message to land. So match your message to the market, and a way you can do this is just to brainstorm, all the people that might need that message, and just think in your day-to-day life, what's the feedback loop that you already get for your message? Because that's going to be vital information to help you match your message to the market. Step 3, publish. I made steps 3 sound easy. It depends. What I mean is get used to putting your writing into the public domain. So publish is simply putting it out there. Yes, working with a publisher is useful, and I'll get into that in step 4. But what I mean by publish is Seth Godin's ideas around putting your work into the public domain so that you can begin to get that feedback loop, and also get used to that kind of feeling, that kind of excited, sick feeling that you get when you put your soul on the line and you just want someone to like it or to read it or for something to happen. And you just need to inoculate yourself a little bit against the vulnerability hangover, as I call it. The emotional risk is what you might think of it as. When we put something that we've done, even if it's technical work or more emotional work, when we've put it out into the world, it can be kind of scary. So my first point about publish is to get your work out there. And many publishers today like to see writers' work that is in the public domain because it gives them a little track record. It makes you seem like a serious writer, someone who's got ideas worth sharing and worth spreading into the world. So put your work out there and just kind of recognize the feedback loop. What's going on for you? How does it feel? Is it easy? Is it hard? Can you push yourself a little bit more as far as what you're writing or how you're putting it out there? I feel like I learn the best simply through doing. And I think for many of us, we get stuck in perfectionism or the theory of it. And actually it's the doing and the putting it out there that helps us move forward more than simply anything else. And so step 4 is publish again, but this time I'm thinking about traditional publishers. Now I know some of you might self-publish, and there is a whole world of effective self-publishing these days. That is just not my experience or the path that I went on. Please do find experts who have self-published, because there's plenty out there who will give you a few clues on how you might go about that. But did you know that if you want to go with a traditional publisher, you don't actually need to write the whole book? I didn't know that at first. They want you to pitch the book to them so that they can see if it's something that their market will want. And of course, a few sample chapters. They all have slightly different rules, which is why it's not just one formula. But they want a pitch document. If they like your 1-paragraph idea or conversation, they certainly have submission criteria. They're going to ask you questions about the market, about your audiences and reach, about the aim of the book. They often want a table of contents, which I found super weird at first because I hadn't written it yet. So what do you mean I need to know what chapter 12 is called? I don't know. Really, that gives you the earliest structure of the book, some of which of course will change through the writing and the editing process, but it really helps them to get a picture of your vision for the book and what you want to do with it. But it kind of frees you up to think, oh, I don't actually have to write the whole thing until I've kind of discussed with a publisher, because in a way, often they quite appreciate when you're in those earlier stages because they can advise you on the market and how to get the best possible kind of way through publishing. Now for me, the first books that I published, I went straight to a publishing house. I didn't have an agent. Now I'm in the process, because I've done a few of those, that I'm talking to agents about pitching me to publishers. But for me, I've kind of stacked small steps and moved my way through each level in order to then get to the next level. You might find that you can skip steps. Don't follow my tools if you know that you believe in your heart that you can just skip a step, get an agent, publish, whatever. I back you. I wish you all the best, because hey, get your message out into the world. But publishers don't need the full manuscript, and it's useful to just talk to anyone in your network who has been published or who knows publishers. My first publisher, I got introduced by a friend who wrote a book, and I said, hey, who is your publisher? Are you happy to email introduce me so I can chat through my idea and send them a little pitch? So that meant I had a warm intro. I still had to sell the book. It still had to work, but it certainly helped to go to my network in order to get that first intro. And step 5, there are so many more steps, but I've tried to be as succinct as possible based on my experience. Now there's this great saying called kill your darlings. Have you heard it? Kill your darlings. That's step 5. Now This is not my saying, because I never even studied writing. I've just been writing a long time and putting myself out there. But I learned this phrase and it's kind of stuck with me. And kill your darlings roughly means don't get too attached to your work. That sentence may have sounded like absolute genius on a Tuesday that you just wrote, Tuesday evening, but by Sunday it may be total crap, and you may have to let it go and edit it out in order to retain the mission and the message of the book. That's okay. So kill your darlings just means that's part of the process. You're going to absolutely write in a way that allows you to flow, and then you're going to have to kill your darlings, listen to your editors around how you position things. However, don't lose your soul in the process, because absolutely a great editor is somebody who works alongside you, holds up a mirror to your blind spots, but it's up to you to then challenge that and go, nope, actually, this is solid and I want to keep this. But kill your darlings is a great way to know that you are not alone in needing to edit, shift, change, and just go through that process moving forward. And finally, this is not a step, but this is just my bonus conclusion. Find your own system. There's no right way to write. And I didn't do the degree in writing, so maybe there is a right way to write. There probably is, but it's often stood me in good stead to ask other writers what their process is, and no writer that I've talked to or read books from and biographies from famous authors, no two writers write the same. So some people like to map out the whole structure of the book and really write in these chunks in order to build out the system. I can't write that way. I call it just writing forward. And I write in a pretty intense way with massive time blocks if I've got something I'm publishing, and I'll put hours and hours into just staying stuck in this intense flow state where I'm just writing forward, and it almost allows that voice in my head that just wants to tell me what's wrong, it's just quiet for a little while, because I'm just flowing and doing word count. I'm not even too structured in like this much word count per day like many writers are. You may find that that's super useful. For me, it isn't, but find your own path, find your own system that works for you. If I'm writing shorter content or articles, I've been known to write them on my phone, on the move, or in 30-minute stints between meetings. I can certainly write out an article, and I've got a kind of system and a flow. I know how I do this, and I know what my market and the people that read my stuff want, so it's kind of simple. But if it's a bigger project, I would simply put in loads of time in the forward writing, and then it's that editing process that also I want to be in flow and put a big chunk of time towards it. I find it really difficult to write something that's a big project in like 1 hour in the morning or 30 minutes here and there. So experiment with your system, read and learn from other authors and publishers on what works for them, but in the way that just allows you to flow with, let me try this, let me experiment, and all of this will help you in my first point, which is just write. Finally, I'm really an advocate of visualizing success. Long before I published a book or two, I could see the book on bookshelves, and I would imagine that it was out there and that I could see people picking it up and that I would be speaking about the book, whatever it might be. The time that you spend visualizing success, like many athletes, thinking and rehearsing the thing that is actually happening, the less surprising it is when it all goes right. Now, if you are a writer in your soul like me, whether that's your day job or not, I would urge you to put your message onto the page, publish simply by putting it out into the world, and just see what magic happens.